Support WrestleTalk!
Hello and welcome to this WrestleTalk reactive news. I'm Chubba Pete Cornell. I'm joined by Randy Andy Datson. Tempest is back in Canada again.
He tried to get back, deported again.
Yep.
He tried to smuggle more things into the country. Stop it, Tempest. If you want to stay here, like you claim you do, you got to stop doing that.
Man has problems. And speaking of problems, that's something that WWE doesn't have.
Ooh.
Oh, what a sick segue we've got. There's some really interesting stuff happening in WWE right now. Obviously, it's at this wave of momentum it's got since Triple H took over power in creative and was kind of essentially running things and Vince McMahon retiring. There might be a sort of changing of the guard in WWE. We're talking backstage stuff, because there's obviously been a lot of front-facing changes, a lot of former WWE guys coming back, a lot of Triple H favorites getting a lot of the spotlight on WWE shows now, big returns of Karrion Kross and Dexter Lumis and people like that, and Dakota Kai. But backstage as well, we're going to be seeing some changes happening, because we've already seen that Jeff Jarrett has left WWE, who was Senior Vice President of Live Events, and that slot has now been taken by Road Dogg.
I think a lot of people, when Triple H took over, were like, okay, there's going to be, this talent's going to come back, this talent's going to come back. But I think possibly more importantly, especially for the company, it's what happened behind the scenes. And now we are starting to see what happens, because we've already got Stephanie McMahon as the sort of joint CEO and joint running things at the top. We've got Triple H. Nick Khan is still there. He's still the kind of numbers guy and all of the financial guy. But in the still very important but slightly lower down positions, I think we're going to see a lot of change. And we've seen the first one this week.
And according to Dave Meltzer on Wrestling Observer Radio, quote, saying that I think a lot of people who are not Paul Levesque's people are probably feeling a bit nervous, and it's going to be a changing of the guard. It's just how it's going to be. It was always going to be that way. It's just a lot of Triple H favorites coming in again, kind of getting his NXT crew that he had, because a lot of them, when it got changed into NXT 2.0 and not long after, were released from the company. A lot of Triple H's inner circle, so to speak. And it seems like he's kind of drip feeding those guys back in, which seemingly has worked great. There's been a lot of notable things, as we mentioned, the big returns from talent, but also just in terms of production, just having a better shot show and stuff that feels a bit more legit. Like, you know, you have the stuff that's happening in the background of shots is a bit more subtle. There's a lot more happening visually in WWE camera work now, which is a great sign. Yeah.
I mean, given that we've had Road Dogg, are we going to get basically DX running the entire show?
I mean,
and coming out with glow sticks.
Yeah.
And it's just going to be the entire backstage, people just walking around going, suck it.
That's the entirety of the backstage. And anyone named Stan, they're going to get super kicked in the face. Can't be having that. And another note from this, from PW Insider, was saying that it is apparently massively night and day, the feeling backstage for production in particular, for the production department. One source reportedly told PW Insider that they're allowed to feel like it's fun to work here, which is a really damning indictment of what it used to be like.
Sad.
It's really sad, isn't it? And apparently there were several individuals who were looking to leave in the last few months who've reconsidered and are actually sticking around in the company. And a lot of people are hoping that this honeymoon phase of WWE just continues and they can stick around for a while.
It must be nice not to feel scared in your job, because you don't want to, because the guy who's running the ship is so volatile and has such a specific way of wanting to do things that you don't even feel like you can suggest anything, because you're like, this is how it works, and this is how it will always work, unless he walks in and says, I want a change. If I felt like I could make a suggestion, even if my boss or my colleague went, no, it's a good idea, but I don't think we can work with that, that's great.
That's fine. Creativity is good. Having opinions is good, because more often than not, having multiple points of view leads to something even better, because you take the best of each world. That's how it works. Isn't it crazy?
Best of both worlds.
Best of both worlds.
Starts here tonight.
Was that the thing for the... Wasn't there a brand split song?
Well, it wasn't Worlds Collide.
No.
It was probably for a draft.
Yeah, for the draft.
We got the best of the best of the best. And remember, you've got a hairy chest. We want it all.
It was something like AJ Styles going on the mic, being like,
this is gonna be phenomenal. It was I have probably more. I've probably watched
Christ.
it more than any WWE video because I just think it's really funny.
Jesus, it is insane. On that front, though, obviously with changes happening, there are going to have to be people who will be released or people will be fired or whatever. And we could see that in terms of talent as well. A lot of the new Triple H guys that are coming back into the company, there's not as much room for some of the other guys who were getting pushed before, potentially, in the roster. Though they did release an awful lot of people.
Yes.
So maybe there is still room. But if there are talent releases, because we've seen a lot of them from NXT UK, as that has been is going to be rebranded to NXT Europe, going on hiatus, so a lot of NXT UK releases have already happened. But in terms of like main roster releases, apparently one person who was very much a Vince McMahon guy and could have been in the firing line was Theory, but Triple H apparently still bloody loves him because he loved him in NXT, and this comes from Wrestling Observer Radio. They were going to put Theory on the house show circuit with Dolph Ziggler to kind of give Theory a bit more of experience with someone who's a bit of a veteran and a very good in-ring worker, and saying that Triple H hasn't changed any of the plans for Theory. Whatever Vince McMahon had planned for Theory, Triple H gone, I also like him, let's continue to do this.
Well, and you saw that on this week's Raw, where it pretty much looks like they are setting up something with Theory and with Johnny Gargano. I think the plan is to have them at least feuding on the house show circuit now that Gargano's back, and it just shows you the level at which they think Theory's at. They think he's great. All these guys that you're putting Theory with just shows you that he's been groomed for multiple WWE Championship runs.
Anywho, this kind of leads us on to a little bit of a very quick discussion point I just wanted to touch on, which is something that Ollie mentioned in his WrestleTalk News episode earlier today. Was about how some of the AEW originals seem to be a little bit pissed off with their booking in AEW. Because you've got some of these ex-WWE guys who have come into the company and they kind of feel like their spot's been taken, so to speak. This comes from Conan on his Keeping It 100 podcast, and he was saying that some guys were pissed at their booking and stuff like that. The amount of people that they brought in for AEW is kind of nuts. And I think that these are really good names to bring into a company. Adam Cole, Bryan Danielson, CM Punk, Andrade El Idolo, Malachi Black, Bobby Fish, Kyle O'Reilly, like Ruby Soho. These are all really big, important names. Keith Lee, Swerve Strickland, these are really big, important names to bring into a company. Are they bringing in too many ex-WWE guys?
I hate to sound like Triple H or the Authority. I still think it's what's best for business. I get that there are people who are like, I've been here from the start and I've been working my arse off. But we've got to remember that AEW is still an incredibly young company. When you are trying to compete with WWE, which for so long has been the top company, it'd be like bringing in another football, like a soccer league in the UK and going, oh no, the Premier League isn't, I know it's a big thing, but we've got like other teams. We've got Liverpool United and stuff like that. You're going to want to bring in the top guys into that as well. So I can absolutely see why AEW are doing it. I don't think it's the worst thing in the world. In fact, I think they should probably keep doing it if there are opportunities to bring in the top guys. I'm not saying they should bring in everyone, but every time there's an opportunity to bring in someone who you think will actually be a needle mover, I think you have to do it, even if it might sacrifice the place of someone else who has been there for longer. You can still push them at some point, but let's say someone like, I don't know, even any upper mid-carder from WWE comes out, you're going to expect them to join AEW, and I can't see a problem with that.
Counterpoint, they do have too many ex-WWE guys. It's not necessarily that they have too many of them, it's the focus is too much on them. I feel like AEW has a little bit of an obsession of the fact that they are an ex-WWE person, because at first, when you start bringing in ex-WWE legends like Paul White and Mark Henry and Christian Cage and people like that, you kind of get a sense of like, okay, they're celebrating wrestling history. Isn't that nice that we get to see these wrestling legends still represented on AEW television? That's cool. And then when they start bringing in a lot of these big guys, you go, okay, they're the big stars. They're people who are going to, like you said, the needle movers. These are really important big stars to have. And then when you start bringing in Ari Daivari and No Way Jose and Wesley Blake and Cole Carter, and then they start doing storylines around Cole Carter being an NXT 2.0 and did you know he was sleeping with the Fishes, but now he's part of the faction. Let's make all the references on our TV time to that. It feels like you're just chasing the WWE hype rather than building your own show.
I get that, but at the same time, I think a lot of these guys like No Way Jose, who just appeared on Dark, I don't feel like AEW are going, oh man, we need No Way Jose. It feels to me like it is a wrestler trying to get his shot.
Sure.
And I don't see any problem with that. If there's a place to kind of try and show off what you can do, because No Way Jose did not get a chance to do that in WWE. Ori Daivari is more of a producer, and these guys, you can kind of get why you might want to bring someone like this in.
Parker Boudreaux.
Parker Boudreaux, yeah, there are exceptions to the rule. There are exceptions to the rule, and you really shouldn't have to bring everyone in. But I feel like there is no harm in trying. Clearly, people saw something in Parker Boudreaux. Maybe AEW, like maybe we can unlock whatever that was. And it's not just because he looks like Brock Lesnar.
I hope they can. Whatever it is that he's got, I hope they can find it. But I just think it's a bit too WWE focused on AEW's programming. That's what I think anyway. That's going to do it for this episode of the Reactive News. Thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. Like and subscribe if you haven't already. We'll be back with more next week. I've been Chopper P. Quinnell. This has been Randy Andy Datson. And that was news. Jam that jam. Goodbye.